My name is Aubrey Leitch, and I am the former public relations manager for Turning Point USA. And I was a part of the recent kind of mass termination group at Turning Point, and was let go about 3 weeks ago. And at the time of my release, I was working for the ATK company, which is spokesman Andrew Colvet's private business that contracts out with the Turning Point kind of ecosystem. So encompassing of Turning Point USA and Turning Point Action. I was working directly for him. Prior to that, I did work for Turning Point USA. So I've been with the organization since 2021. So my boss, Andrew Colvet, and I had a very close working relationship. I talked with him on a weekly, if not daily basis. My tasks were assigned by him to me. Working directly for him was a challenge and very intimidating because, he was Charlie's right-hand guy, always in Charlie's ear, constantly. And so it was very important to me to be an impressive and loyal employee to Andrew, to which I believe I certainly was. I did so many things for that company. I worked many, many hours outside of my general kind of understanding of what this job entailed. And I had no problem with it because I wanted to work hard for both Andrew and Charlie, for my coworkers, and for the Lord. And that was the expectation that Charlie had for us as well, was to work very hard. I really believed in the mission of Turning Point and what we were doing. So taking it back all the way to 2021 when I first started working at Turning Point, let's be honest, being a conservative was not very cool or trendy back then. I think we really owe it to a lot of the work that Charlie put in and us at Turning Point put in. It kind of made conservatism more cool and trendy. But back then, it wasn't very cool. And so it was such a beautiful thing to be kind of plopped into this place of employment where everybody was so like-minded. It was just such a fun place to work. I had nothing but wonderful experiences right from the start. But then in, I'd say around 2022 or 2023, things kind of started to change. The energy kind of had shifted within the organization as a whole. And I believe that stemmed from Charlie sort of taking a step back and kind of more taking that true CEO leadership role. And Charlie decided to entrust some of these people that had been working at Turning Point and some outside hires to kind of take more of a leadership position within the organization. And I don't blame Charlie for that. I kind of understood where things were going. I wasn't a big fan of the energy and kind of environment shift, but I understood why things like this needed to happen. These people that Charlie put into leadership positions, I didn't always agree with, but I was certainly in no place to judge the discretion of my CEO. I trusted that he put the right people in charge, but over time, I pretty quickly learned that some of these people in leadership positions were not people that I felt were either prepared or qualified to be, or deserving to be in that role. Fast forwarding a few years from that time I just spoke about in 2022, 2023, all the way up until September 10th, 2025. Obviously, it was an extremely traumatizing day for everyone. I think pretty much everyone in the world with any amount of sanity was slightly traumatized by what they saw. It was an extremely traumatizing day for me. And I worked nonstop. My phone received hundreds of phone calls on September 10th, thousands of text messages, and multiple times I kind of got reprimanded for not being responsive enough to people, but I literally just could not keep up with everything that was happening between my email and my personal phone and my work phone. It was just nonstop. And I've seen a video of a coworker of mine who was also released from Turning Point. She spoke about 20-hour days. Yeah, absolutely. Those were very, very real, especially for those first 2 months post Charlie's assassination. In December, we obviously had America Fest here in Phoenix, Arizona, and that was nonstop work too. And so really it's just been go, go, go for almost the past 6 months with like no extra compensation, no breaks, no real, hey, let's grieve as a family, let's take some time and we'll pick back up where we left off in just a little while. And I wasn't necessarily expecting that. Charlie was someone who always expected us to push through and to continue to work. However, I think that these are extremely unprecedented circumstances in which we were all under. And so that was a huge turnoff for me at the organization, was just how everything has been handled since 9/10. During the memorial, for example, I literally did not sleep for over 48 hours. Despite all of that, I want to go ahead and fast forward to my termination, which took place about 3 weeks ago. And I was brought into an office to have a discussion just generally about my employment. It was myself, Andrew Colvett, and Marina Minas, who is the CMO of Turning Point USA, who I used to work for when I was just full-time with Turning Point prior to joining the ATK company. They pulled me into a room and they sat me down and told me that there were 2 instances they wanted to talk to me about, one of which is pretty irrelevant to this timeline, so I'm just going to talk about the one, which was an Uber ride that took place allegedly in the months of either October or November of 2025. And what was told to me was that a Turning Point executive got into an Uber one day and they randomly just kind of started talking about Turning Point. And the executive asked the driver, what do you think about Turning Point? And the driver proceeded to tell the Turning Point executive, well, it's just really sad. I've heard the organization's really going downhill. There's not really a direction and nobody likes Erica. And the Turning Point executive proceeded to ask this Uber driver, well, who told you that? And the Uber driver told the Turning Point executive that his daughter was good friends with a girl that worked at Turning Point way back when in high school. They had spoken about Turning Point since Charlie's assassination, and that, this was told to him by his daughter. And the Turning Point executive, of course, asked, well, what's the employee's name? And the Uber driver allegedly said, Aubrey. Aubrey who? Aubrey Leitch. And the story was presented to me as one of the reasons for my termination. And I was just a little taken aback because, number one, I'm not really friends with anybody from high school. And a lot of that has to do with my political beliefs. I've been a conservative since I was pretty much a junior in high school. And so I don't know who I would have told this story to. And it also doesn't even align with my true thoughts of Erica at the time. I've actually known Erica since 2013. We were doing pageants around the same time as one another. She was in the Miss USA organization and I was in the Miss United States organization. And we happened to cross paths at an event. So I've known Erica for quite some time. And my thoughts of her and nobody liking her do not align whatsoever with that timeline of October or November. So that was one of Turning Point's reasons for letting me go. So unlike my peers, I actually was given reason. However, there's another thing I kind of want to dive into. To protect myself, I am going to preface with Turning Point has not insinuated this. They never told me anything like this. However, I just have a gut feeling that I was terminated from Turning Point because I am questioning the narrative of what happened to my role model and CEO, Charlie Kirk, on the day of his assassination. What is being told to us in the mainstream media just really doesn't add up to me. And I'm really hopeful that one day it will. But as it stands right now, it just doesn't. And so I've been here in the background talking with people, expressing how I truly feel, because as an American citizen, I have the right to my freedom of speech and my freedom of thought. And I have a lot of concerns and a lot of questions about what took place that day and the events leading up to that day. It is from my own experience that you can't question the narrative and work at Turning Point. That is how I feel. That is how other people I've talked to feel. It goes against everything that Charlie ever stood for. Charlie was someone who did question things, who did challenge the narrative. And I know that if anything at all were to have happened to myself or another employee or any other peer within the Turning Point family, that Charlie would be doing the same thing if we were brutally assassinated in the way that he was. He would have never lived it down. And that is what I'm standing by as well. I am not going to just idly sit by and hope that the truth comes to light. I'm going to take action. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to talk to other people. And I refuse to apologize for having my own freedom of thought, which is something that Charlie ingrained in me and so many other young people. So really the purpose of me coming on here and speaking with you today is to just bring light to the situation of the treatment happening inside the organization. All of these people who have been terminated were the most hardworking, loyal, honest employees that Turning Point has ever had. And I know that because I've actually been at Turning Point longer than most people. That's public record. You can see it for yourself on these job websites. Turning Point's average length of employment is about 1.5 to 2. And so to be there for almost 5 years is actually quite some time. I've seen the media and marketing team, for example, turn over at least twice, consuming of about 40 people. And so I know that these people have been some of the most loyal, hardworking, and honest individuals to ever pass through the organization because I've been there, done that, and seen it all. I'm doing this for them. And I'm doing this for my friends who I consider family who are still there in hopes that they will start to receive better treatment by the leadership there because nobody deserves to be let go without cause. And frankly, it's a loss for Turning Point. We're all going to be better off because of this because we have removed ourselves from an environment that was no longer serving us. And in my opinion, no longer serving the Lord, which was Charlie's entire intention. The other purpose of this video is to bring to light the fact that although Turning Point is an organization that is all about freedom of speech and promoting that, from my experience, it is certainly not a place where that is something that is really accepted. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want this to be the ending result for me or for Turning Point. It literally breaks my heart to make this video. But I know that I owe it to Charlie and that this would be the expectation for me. And so that's why I'm doing it. Everything's for Charlie. Overall, it's really disappointing to see the direction in which Turning Point is going. And that is maybe one thing right that they got about this Uber ride is I'm not confident in where it's going as it stands right now. And I'm really disappointed by that because I packed up and moved my entire life back to my hometown solely for the purpose of working for Turning Point. That is how much I love this place. I just refuse to stand by, watch my peers be unfairly treated, and watch leadership attempt to take over something that was Charlie through and through and something that he poured his heart, soul, and mind into building and creating and maintaining. I appreciate everyone who stuck around for the entirety of this video, and God bless you all.
You better keep asking questions because it's the only thing that keeps us free. Thank you so much.